through what I did, and I was so attached to this performance identity, and I was trying to prove my worth and value through what I did until I actually realized and accepted my Father's love for me. I'm actually now a whole human being, and I'm actually able to carry out what I'm called to do.
Amen.
When I was 5 years old, my parents owned an outboard marine dealership, and they put me in swimming lessons. And before that's because they wanted me to learn to swim. Before I knew it, I naturally progressed through. And when I was 10 years old, my dad was actually living his life out through me. I was pushed way too hard, too young. When I was 10 years old, my dad had me watching the Rocky movie and giving me creatine and protein shakes, and I was swimming up to 50 to 60 kilometers a week at the age of 10 years old. I got a bronze medal at the national titles at 10. When I was 13 years old, I won 6 gold and 2 silver at the national titles, and also broke Ian Thorpe's Australian 200 metre freestyle record. So you can imagine what life was like for me at a young age. When I was 14 years old, I won 8 gold and 2 silver, and still to today, it's one of the most medals won in history, in Australian history. Little did I know, I was actually over the sport at 14 years old. I was trying to prove my dad's love for me and trying to prove my worth and value through what I did. And because I was exposed to some pretty messed up things at the age of 10 years old as well. Little did I know, not long after the medals didn't satisfy me, they didn't give me any completion, any fulfillment, I started pursuing binge drinking when I was in grade 8 and started binge drinking and getting wild on the weekends. When I was 14 years old, I was exposed to in the swimming industry into Stillnox sleeping tablets. So I was into sleeping tablets and binge drinking and partying at a young age. When I was 16 years old, I got my first girlfriend, and we were together for 2 years. And I always had a dream. When I was in grade 3, they said to me, what do you want to be when you're older? And all my friends in the grade, they said, I want to be a vet. I want to be, all those kind of things we need in our community. But I knew I wanted to represent Australia at the Olympic Games. So here I go, I'm pursuing my dream. And it was 2008 was the Beijing Olympics. And my coach pulled me aside and he said, Dan, you potentially going to the Olympics, given how good I was when I was young. And so here I go off to the 2009 Beijing Olympics. I was 18 years old, which is a pretty young age to make the Australian team. And I go to make it, and the night before my race, I was on Stillnox and overdosed on Stillnox and had a Stillnox party in my apartment before the meet. And so little did I know, I ended up missing the team. I got 7th place and missed the team, and I just started burying it and started partying more. And the following year was 2009. And this was about when you get my car driver's license. And at the same time that I got my car driver's license, one of my best mates who was older than me, he had a Monaro. And I said to my best mate at the time, how did he get that? And he paid $70,000 cash for it. And so for me, I asked him how he got that, and he sold drugs. So I started selling drugs, started getting into the drug industry, and started dealing drugs because I was chasing money, power, and women, and I was trying to fill a void in my life that no matter what I did or saw, nothing would fulfill that. And not long after that was 2009. I'm selling drugs, and I was partying, and I was into DJing, and I was into drink driving. I used to love drink driving. And I was DJing. I won my first Open Australian title in 2009, so I was #1 in Australia while I was living this double lifestyle. 6 weeks after that, I was DJing a school formal after party on the Gold Coast, and long story short, the party got cut off real quickly. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I've come out to my car, a nice Commodore VE. I was very cashed up for my age. And I've come out to my car, and two of my best mates have passed out all through my leather interior with vomit. And so I cleaned up the vomit, put seatbelts on, and put it into perspective, I'd had 12 beers and 2 bottles of vodka, and I was on drugs. And I've got behind the wheel of the car, and I've driven out of the party on the main street of the Gold Coast. And the police put their sirens on, and I ended up getting in a high-speed police chase. And to put it into perspective, the police clocked me at 198 in a 60 kilometre an hour zone down the main street of the Gold Coast. I'm 18 years old, and because I was so intoxicated, it felt like I was doing 60 kilometres an hour. And I'm in a high-speed police chase, and I've come up to the intersection on the Gold Coast, and this car's ran a red light, and I've had to hit the brakes and take the corner. And the car kept going straight, and it hit the gutter, it missed that car, hit the gutter, and flipped front to end 3 times, went through a brick wall and into a house. And so you can imagine what life was like for me. I'm #1 swimmer in Australia, and I've just now flipped my car into a house. We all miraculously survived, and put into perspective, not that long ago, I lost one of my best mates. He's a paraplegic now. He was a professional car drifter, so he's a good car driver. He happened to roll his car off the side of the road doing 60 k's an hour. He didn't have a seatbelt on, he's now a paraplegic. And I've survived this car accident. I was doing 200 kilometers an hour and flipped my car into a house. Anyway, I ended up running from the scene and went on the run from the cops and got caught a little bit further down the road, and I got put in lockup. And when I came out of lockup, all the news crews were there waiting for me, and I didn't know how to deal with all the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment that was portrayed on me, which I deserved in a way. And the cops of the media absolutely crucified me. And I decided I'd run away and started doing drugs, and before I knew it, I was smoking marijuana in the drug scene, into the bikie scene, and got into everything. And before I knew it, my parents found a bong in my car, which was pretty minor compared to what I was up to. And my parents gave me a choice. They said, you can either keep your job or you can go to rehab. And I was like, well, I'll go to rehab to turn my life around. And so anyway, I went to rehab, and rehab was like going to the zoo, I call it. And I just met more people that did it, and all of a sudden I was connected in a whole different realm of drugs. Like I was in I got exposed to ice and all these kind of cooks and crazy people in rehab. And I came out of rehab and I was 18 years old, and I'm sitting in a room with a 55-year-old man in a little crackdown in Chugan, and I'm smoking ice for the first time. And he said to me, he looked me in the eye and he said, son, within 3 months you'll lose everything. You're too good for this. And literally all it took was a month. I thought I'd be okay. And ice literally destroyed my life. It ripped every part of me. I went down to weighing 68 kilos. I had a $2,500 a week minimum ice habit. So you can imagine what any normal human being or criminal has to do to fund a habit like that. I was in and out of lockup all the time. I've been locked up. I've been locked in the mental health ward for up to 2 to 3 weeks at a time. They told me my brain function will never come back. I was full schizophrenic, paranoid, and they told me I'd never come back. I literally destroyed the drug industry on the Gold Coast. My friends are wild. One of my best mates, we're no longer friends anymore. He's just served 10 years for shooting a cop in an armed robbery on the Gold Coast. And these were the kind of guys that I was rolling with. And anyway, before I knew it, that part went on for 4 years. I probably had 6 to 7 attempts at rehab, and ended up going to a rehab. I ended up I was homeless, living on the street, and I rang my dad and I said, Dad, like, I can't do this anymore. I can't even end my life. Like, there's got to be more to my life than this. And you got to understand too, like, I never grew up knowing God. Like, I didn't know anything about Christianity or any of that stuff. And so anyway, I rang my dad, and long story short, I was with my dad, and my drug phone ended up ringing, and this guy set up an intervention with this guy that he knows that he believed that he could help me. And I've gone to this meeting in Surfers Paradise, and my dad, this big bikey looking guy's come out of the room, and he's 6'6", and he had a big gold chain on and a big mohawk, and he had God squad on the back of his jersey. And my dad thought, because he'd been in trouble with the bikies and stuff, he thought we're getting robbed. It was pretty funny. And anyway, we've gone into this room, and I didn't know it either. On the side of the building, it had Jesus on the side of the building. And I didn't know anything about that stuff. And I walked in this room and started pouring out all the stuff I was going through and all this stuff. And the guy said to me, this is all he said to me. He didn't preach the gospel to me. He didn't tell me anything about God. But he said, Dan, I've been clean for 17 years. I've got a rehabilitation program that restores people's lives. We can help you, bro. And that was the first time my whole life that I was told that. I was labelled too far gone. My parents were told, your son can't be helped. I got told my brain function wouldn't even come back. And anyway, I've gone to this rehabilitation program in Harvey Bay, Transformations Rehabilitation Program, and I thought I was going to a luxury rehabilitation centre. And this place was pretty rough. I go there and there's bunk beds, there's 166 rules all related to the Bible. They do Bible study every day. They go to church twice on Sundays, and I was like, what's wrong with these guys? Like why do they actually turning their lives around? Like, why are they actually changing? Because I'd been to rehab and just met more people and got more connected and got more involved. And this rehab was different. Like, there was full-blown criminals that were way more ruthless than I was, had done 10 to 15 years jail, that were turning their lives around. And I couldn't believe the love of the staff there. And they loved me when I was so unlovable. And to be honest, that started drawing me to ask questions of like, what's different about you guys? And 1 month into the program, I had a court case And I was looking at going away for 2.5 years. That was my sentence from all the stuff that I'd done. And I've gone to the, before I went to court, my brother's in the house. They said, can we pray for you, bro? And I was like, yeah, like I'll take whatever I could get. And they put their hands on me and they prayed for me, and which was beautiful. And then I've gone to the court and my lawyer's pulled me aside and he said, damn, like 2.5 years jail today is a good sentence. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, he's like, well, you've done it, you know, like that's a good sentence. So anyway, I've gone into the court and I didn't know how to pray or anything, but I said in my head, I said, God, if you're real, I want one more chance at my life. I promise I won't let you down. And I've gone into the courtroom, the prosecutor's on my right, and the judge starts reading out everything that I'd done to the person, the QP9s and the statements and all that kind of stuff. And I was involved with some pretty heavy things. And as that's happening to me, I felt this presence come over me in the courtroom, and it was like my hair started to stand up on my skin, and I just started to feel love for the first time. And for me, it was the first time in my whole life that I felt any remorse or sympathy or empathy or compassion. Like, I was so sorry for everything that I'd done to anything in my whole life. And in that moment, I started to repent. Like, I was crying like a little kid. And honestly, I couldn't stop crying. I'm crying in the courtroom. The judge would have thought I was on drugs, you know what I mean? He would have thought I was crazy. And anyway, the judge gave me an absolute serving, long story short, and he goes 2 months jail for this, 3 months jail for that, 4 months jail for this, and it all added up to 2.5 years. And he goes, I'm going to suspend you today, Mr. Smith, and I never want to see you again. He gave me a suspended sentence and let me off.